decision on the future of Ukraine's membership in NATO is decided. But without Ukraine's leadership, without Ukraine's will, without Ukraine standing for itself, nobody's going to replace that.
We're here today in Riga, the capital of Latvia, and we're here just to speak at the foreign ministry across the road to the country's foreign minister, Baiba, who's been one of the most vocal supporters of Ukraine. From Latvia's perspective, looking back at this year, at 2024, we had some positive news in terms of support for Ukraine, aid being unblocked, permissions to strike inside Russia being unblocked, and some things improving, but also in the battlefield, it seems like Russia is really taking the upper hand, and we seem to be coming into a period of great unpredictability and uncertainty. How have you watched this from here, from Latvia, from just across the border with Russia, and how decisive could these next few months be?
Yes, it has been a year of decisions. It has been a year of our priorities, which were very clear, that making sure that all the NATO countries on Russia's borders are safe and secure, and making sure that Ukraine is supported. And for us, it's not about for as long as it takes, but actually really looking at Ukraine's victory and to be defined by Ukraine, not by others. And of course, limiting Russia's ability to gain military capabilities, constraining Russia politically, constraining Russia internationally. In all three sort of priorities, we have, I think, done a lot and achieved quite a bit of progress. The allies' presence here in the Baltic states has strengthened. Sweden joined NATO, Finland last year, so that also has meant a lot in terms of regional sort of plans, defense plans for the Baltic states, for the Nordic Baltic countries, but also in terms of capabilities that we have provided what we could to Ukraine ourselves, and we have really encouraged and worked with the others to do maximum. We have worked internationally to ensure that there is a lot of support for Ukraine. When we look at the UN votes, there is still overwhelming majority of countries supporting Ukraine, but also making sure that our understanding internationally in terms what is the sort of UN Charter's importance for all the countries is well known. So together with your foreign minister, we coordinated action with regard to outreach to many countries of the world to make sure that they understand why supporting Ukraine, it is so important. We have provided support also on energy infrastructure. We have asked others to do that. And, there's a lot of work happening. And then on Russia, obviously Russia moved to the war economy much faster because it's an autocratic state. So, they don't have to take into account what other countries think, what population thinks, what various interest groups think. So they literally just throw thousands of people per day to death, and there's very little accountability for that in Russia. So as I heard, soon in the beginning of next year, it will be about 1 million people, Russians, killed and wounded. Sanctions on our side have quite clearly meant that Russian economy is not doing well. And it's really not doing well by all accounts. We can see that in data, we can see that in analysis. So from Latvia's side, obviously that is a very clear objective. Russia should not be getting what it needs for the war. What it is doing is pillaging civilian economy. So literally, they are taking out from the civilian side of the economy everything that they need for the military. And then they are trying to avoid the sanctions that have been imposed not only by EU, but also America, UK, and other countries in the world. And they are trying constantly to evade those sanctions.
The topic of peace negotiations has come up more and more recently, and Zelensky himself has changed his position a little bit in terms of saying that Ukraine would be ready to end the fighting from their side without liberating all of its sovereign territory in exchange for NATO membership, and Kyiv has been very clear that the only real security guarantee after a ceasefire is NATO membership. Does Latvia share that opinion of Ukraine?
Decision on the future of Ukraine's membership in NATO is decided. There is a political decision both in 2008 at last year's Washington summit that the Ukraine's future in NATO is something that is not negotiable. But from other hand, of course, with the war ongoing, what does it mean then to have security guarantees? What does it mean to be a member of NATO? Because currently NATO is not ready to enter the war, because the clear concept is that Ukraine's self-defense is supported, everybody supports it, provides what is necessary, but nobody wants to be part of the war, fighting the war. So that's why quite clearly the question of the borders, which borders, if the ceasefire applies or if there is a sort of stop in hostilities, then next step thinking about security guarantees or Article 5 or anything, that's still the same thing. It's the security guarantees. On which borders, how it's implemented, what does it mean? So there are a lot of questions. None of these concepts are abstract. And I don't think people will be ready to discuss that much in public, because I agree with President Zelensky that NATO membership is the best way for Ukraine. We support it. But I don't think it's the exchange for ceasefire or exchange for peace talks versus NATO membership. There's all the aspects have to be addressed. How to ensure just and lasting peace on Ukrainian terms is the most crucial thing. But I don't have an answer currently for them.
Do you think it's possible in the near term to reach this unified understanding that a peace must come with a secure Ukraine, or can it be solved afterwards?
No, I think it's total understanding of that, because nobody wants some ceasefire which just lets Russia kind of reconstitute and then start more of the war. That's nobody's interest. But as I said also very clearly, that a stronger Ukraine is on the battlefield, the stronger the position on the battlefield, the stronger the position at the negotiation table. So that is a primary precondition of successful negotiations. And then it will also, of course, be very difficult if there is some type of settlement, what type of settlement that is and who negotiates that, because we know from our experience that getting Russian troops out is very difficult. And then also, obviously, nobody will recognize occupied territories as Russian. The international law and Ukrainian international borders are what they are. Nobody's going to do that. And it was the same with the Baltic states. We were occupied by the Soviets for 50 years. And neither the US nor other Western countries recognized the occupation. So we restored the independence after 50 years, even though many people were saying, oh, that's not possible. Oh, that's not going to happen. Oh my God, how can you think of a full regaining of independence? You have to be careful because, if the USSR falls apart, then what happens, with the stability and peace and I don't know what. Primarily, we as people, whether it's Latvians or Estonians or Lithuanians, we know what we want. We make our choices, and Ukraine is the same. Ukraine knows what it wants and it makes its choices. And yes, fighting for the freedom and for the future, which is future of a free country, is very difficult. And the losses and the situation on the battlefield is very difficult, but it's worth fighting for, in my view. We did that in Latvia in 1921.
Going now to the Russian side, do you think they're just trying to position themselves as strong as possible, or what would it take for them to actually be ready to stop on the battlefield?
I think it's, from one hand, delusional, ignoring the reality of the economy of the real situation in Russia, and thinking that they can maintain this type of situation. From other hand, it's also sort of conviction that they have to take as much as territory as soon as possible, because that will make their position stronger. And that's why I said that fighting in Ukraine by Ukrainians and making sure that you are as strong as necessary, that is something that is fighting for Ukraine's future. And it's crucially important to continue showing that there is a will to fight and there is a will to be free and will to be European and members of NATO. Because nobody else is going to do that for you. It's a Ukrainian fight. Others will support, but it's a Ukrainian fight, and we inspire from that from one hand, but we also clearly know that we are led by this Ukrainian will.
If it's not NATO membership itself, more and more people have been talking about, there have been reports about, discussions about so-called boots on the ground, a physical presence of troops from NATO countries or even non-NATO partners inside Ukraine, whether that's along a ceasefire or deployment of air defense, of other long-range assets, like Zelensky mentioned in his victory plan. Do you think that physical presence is required?
I cannot discuss what is being discussed in classified conversations, so it would be highly irresponsible for me. And Latvia hasn't made any decisions because it's not, a decision-making time. If there is at some moment the ceasefire or the settlement that Ukraine is satisfied with, that there is a very clear understanding of how to enforce it and so on and so forth, together with allies, I would imagine Latvia is not going to say no. But again, I don't have a mandate to say that currently because we are not there yet. So that would be highly irresponsible to sort of suggest something. Very strong message that we transmit to everyone and that we as Nordic Baltic countries discuss and stand for is Ukraine first, that Ukraine's strength, Ukraine's supplies, the battle, the political support, the future in the EU and NATO is something that we are devoting all that we can, literally, in terms of political support, money, resources, what we can. But without Ukraine's leadership, without Ukraine's will, without Ukraine standing for itself, nobody is going to replace that. So that is the first leading light that we all look up to. And then, of course, we work with all the others to make sure that it can be led to the conclusion that ensures free, peaceful, stable, democratic Ukraine, member of the EU and NATO.
Hi, my name is Farrell, a reporter here at the Kyiv Independent. We here at the Kyiv Independent are not stopping for a second to bring you what you need to know about this war and about the world processes that affect it. But we need your help. For as little as the price of a cup of coffee, you can join our community of thousands of members who form the core of what makes our work here in Ukraine and across the world possible. To support independent journalism and join us in this fight, become a member now by clicking here. Thank you.